you guys up there in Roanoke before. So anyway, the doing a good job of covering Virginia Tech, I know. Anyway, you may have just heard me praise off the air, if you were watching on Facebook Live, me praise Mark Berman. Covers Virginia Tech basketball for Roanoke.com, for the Roanoke Times. Well, it's Roanoke.com, or the Roanoke Times. I was getting you confused there briefly with Richmond and trying to call you the Times Dispatch. No, you're just the Roanoke Times and all that. And it was a game for the Times last night. Let me see if we can't get a highlight. Well, I'll play it here a little bit later on as Virginia Tech defeats North Carolina in Blacksburg 80-69 to run their record to 14-6. North Carolina was number 10 in the country coming into the game. Mark, just for the people who are Virginia Tech fans in the area, but maybe didn't have a chance to see the game or go to the game or something, what was the environment like yesterday there in Blacksburg?
Oh, well, it had a sellout crowd. It was a good crowd. Obviously, when Virginia Tech's playing North Carolina, that's one of the bigger games on the schedule, home schedule there. So obviously, it was a 7 o'clock game as opposed to a. Sometimes you have a 9 o'clock tip and the crowd's not going to be so good because of late hour, but 7 o'clock game and Carolina as the opponent, so yeah, it was a very good crowd.
Well, I want to ask you what your thought is of the strength this year of the Tar Heels. Certainly they're number 10 in the country coming in or so, but this is also a team that lost at home to Wofford earlier in the year. Not that Wofford is a great slouch, but it's a mid-major. Why is North Carolina seemingly vulnerable this year?
Well, I like Roy Williams said after the game. He said that, I feel like I'm spending too much time coaching energy level this year. I don't think he, obviously, I don't think he thinks his team is, kind of gives its all at every single game there. Obviously, it was a very important game for Virginia Tech. They're trying to get a marquee win for the NCAA tournament resume. They hadn't beaten a quality team all year, so they, Roy said that they had their sense of urgency was much greater than ours. They were into it more, and that was the case. Tech really wanted to get that win, and they went out and got it. Carolina, they're the defending national champions. Obviously they were pretty motivated last year to get back in the title game and win it after losing a title game 2 years ago. So I think Roy's trying to get that team to be as energetic this year as they were last year. And obviously, it's not the same team they had last year. They still have got very good players like Luke May and Joe Barry. Obviously, last night, Luke May and Joe Barry each had 23 points, but no one else scored much for Carolina, and that's a problem. And of course, they came into the game as the leading rebounding team in the country. Leading the country in rebounding margin, but Virginia Tech out-rebounded them, which doesn't usually happen. Virginia Tech doesn't usually out-rebound anybody, that was a big plus for Virginia Tech last night.
We're talking to someone we haven't in a while, and it's been long overdue, Mark Berman, who covers Virginia Tech basketball for Roanoke.com and the Roanoke Times. They're pretty much one and the same, and if you're not getting the paper copy down in the Tri-Cities, you go to Roanoke.com. Tech's now 14-6, but 3-4 in the ACC. You said earlier they needed a signature victory to sort of make a statement that they should be back in the NCAA tournament. Did this game do it, in your opinion?
Oh well, no. I mean, it's only January. I said this was the first quality win they had all year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I mean, they needed one. They needed to, put themselves in the NCAA tournament conversation. Now they have to keep themselves there. I mean, now the next two games are on the road at Notre Dame and Boston College. They have to keep the momentum going. Now you turn around and lose the next two road games. Now you're kind of back to clawing to be relevant again. But they have they're not in the NCAA tournament yet. I mean, they're not even they're still below 500 in the ACC. This was their first good win of the year. But they needed a good win. They got a good win. Now they got to add to the resume as the season goes on. Now they have they got more opportunities to do it. Of course, they host Miami next month. They play Duke twice next month. They host Clemson and Louisville next month. They play Miami and Virginia on the road next month. So I mean they've got plenty of opportunities for quality wins. But until last night, we didn't know if this team was capable of being a good team. Now we know they're capable of it. They did it, and so now we'll see if they can keep it up and kind of add to the tournament resume.
Justin Robinson led the Hokies with 19 points. He's the point guard. I'm never always that big of a fan of the point guard being the leading scorer on a team. I view it sort of like a quarterback who is the leading rusher. But tell me how that works, Justin Robinson being not just the point guard who makes the other players better, but sometimes takes the shot himself. How does he weigh that without taking away opportunities from other players, in your opinion, in his game?
Well, I mean, he's still, he's only the fourth leading scorer on the team for the season.
But so this goes, okay.
Last night, but Med Hill had 18 points. Kerry Blackshear Jr. had 16 points. So it wasn't like he was, dominating the scoring there. Instead, usually he's averaging about 10, 12 points a game. It's just the fact he happened to have 19 points last night, but it just kind of happens if, he's making threes, and then in that case, last night he made some threes. So when you get 3 3-pointers, that starts adding to your, like you did last night, that starts adding to your point total. And if you're the guy that's, driving to the basket, you're going to get some points as well. But, yeah, I mean, that's, he's not, he's had some good scoring games lately. He had a lot of points against Florida State last weekend, for example, but that's not it's not a game-in and game-out thing for him. All
right, we're talking to Mark Berman, and he's giving me a crash course in Virginia Tech basketball as we're trying to learn here about the Hokies as they try to go back to the NCAA tournament this year. And now they put a feather in their cap, let's just say, with an 11-point victory against North Carolina. Now, you wrote how this was the first time that Virginia Tech defeated a defending national champion in 6 years. Is this the biggest Hokies victory on the hardwood in 6 years, in your opinion?
7 years was back in 2011.
I'm sorry, I forgot what year it is. Here, I'm living in the past.
That was the last time they beat a defending national champion, was 2011, that February when number 1 Duke came to town, College came to town, so it was a huge day in the national spotlight for Virginia Tech. Unfortunately, College Game Day was there to do the pregame show from Castle, and then that night they're in prime time against number 1 Duke, and they knocked off number 1 Duke. Now, of course, they did not make the NCAA tournament that year, so that's what I say about, in terms of you need to keep the momentum going and not squander it there. Obviously, 2011, they beat the defending national champions, beat the number 1 team in the country, and did not make the NCAA tournament. So you can't let that be the only highlight. You can't let that be the highlight of the season and not end up making the NCAA tournament. You got to keep it going and add to the keep the momentum going there. But yeah, that was certainly a big win for them. Last year they beat number 5 Duke. That was the game that Grayson Allen was suspended for, and so they didn't have to worry about Grayson Allen last year. But still, anytime you can beat Duke and you're Virginia Tech, that's a big deal, and that certainly helped their NCAA tournament resume last year. When you can have a marquee win against Duke on the old resume there. Well,
we're talking to Mark Berman, Roanoke.com here. The Virginia Tech Hokies, really the story, the game of the day yesterday was their upset of the North Carolina Tar Heels. In fact, their first double-digit victory against North Carolina. And keep in mind, the Hokies and North Carolina are conference rivals relatively not that long. Hokies weren't part of the ACC when it started in 1953, but it's the first time since 1949 that Virginia Tech defeated the Tar Heels by double digits on the hardwood. And Virginia Tech also historically, this, it always seemed because of their location, they would play historically a lot of ACC teams, football, basketball, to fill out a schedule when they might have been in playing, say, in the, I remember the Metro Conference or the A-10, or even before then. Virginia Tech, certainly in football, playing teams.
Tech had lost to UNC 7 straight years, 7 straight times.
Sure.
But since 2010, February of 2010. So, yeah, that's, UNC had dominated Tech in the series of late, beating them 7 straight times. So that was, it was a big win for Tech to be able to beat Carolina for a change.
Mark, I go and on this show and I try to figure out a way in which the Southern Conference, because the Tri-Cities, it's a Southern Conference town, could somehow, possibly, conceivably, one way or the other, get 2 teams in the NCAAs. And I still can't punch it out and do it, but that's what I try to do here a lot. Tell me here, though, how many teams do you think right now are NCAA worthy out of the ACC?
Well, I mean, right now I think that you're looking at probably can they get can they get 7 teams in? Sure. Can they get 8 teams in? Sure. Could they get 9 teams in? Maybe. Yeah. So you just kind of have to see how the season unfolds there. I mean, obviously can Tech end up making the NCAA tournament? I mean, let's see if they can capitalize on this. Notre Dame right now, without Bonzie Colson until the ACC tournament, Notre Dame's lost four straight games now. Is Notre Dame going to play itself out of the NCAA tournament picture? Right now Clemson's nationally ranked, but Clemson just lost Dante Grantham for the rest of the year with a torn ACL. Is Clemson going to now? I mean, right now they're sitting here 16-3 overall, but are they going to be to stay relevant without Dante Grantham? Are they going to play themselves out of the NCAA tournament picture? So I think right now you got Virginia's looking good, Louisville's looking good, Duke's looking good. Carolina's still obviously looking good for the NCAA's. Miami is looking good. Florida State's looking good. But now the question is, can Clemson stay looking good? Can Virginia Tech keep adding to the tournament resume? Can Notre Dame scrape enough wins together, without the one of the better players in the country? So we'll see kind of how many bids they can wind up getting, depending on how teams like Tech and Notre Dame, Clemson do in the second half of the season here.
Well, Mark Berman, I do want to ask you if you could enlighten the Tennesseans in our audience something of Virginia culture, if you will. Obviously, anytime you beat North Carolina, that's going to be prestigious, even if they're having a bad year, which North Carolina really isn't having this year. I mean, number 10, yeah, maybe that by North Carolina standards is something that they want to improve on.
I mean, they won 4 straight games coming in. So
exactly, yeah.
They did lose to Wofford this year. I mean, it was, it was, but it was still a top 10 team in the polls there.
Sure. No, we're not, in all this. I'm just saying by North Carolina standards, sometimes they may look down at number 10 or something. But, no, my question was this. If you could enlighten the Tennesseans to Virginia culture, a victory against North Carolina is huge. But with Virginia number 2 in the country, if Virginia Tech beats Virginia, is that bigger for Virginia Tech fans?
Well, yeah, I mean, Tech UVA is a big
okay, yeah, no. I didn't know if it was because the prestige of the North Carolina program, that's a little bit, or if the rivalry took it. But I just was trying to figure out.
Virginia, that's the big state rivalry.
Sure.
That's far and away, that's the rivalry game is Tech UVA when they play each other twice a year. But, I mean, and of course, also don't forget UVA is number 2 in the country. So,
yeah.
A UVA win would look as good on the resume this year as beating Duke Carolina. So.
Okay, now final question, Mark Berman, I want to ask you. I don't know if you've heard anything, but why not? It was announced here that Bristol Motor Speedway, they're going to host another football game. Last time they did, Virginia Tech was one of the teams. Have you heard anything about Virginia Tech possibly playing again at BMS?
No, I'm kind of focused on basketball. I don't really...
No, you haven't heard anything, just focusing around, hearing anything from the athletic department?
Yeah, I'm busy covering basketball. I
don't
know anything about Bristol Motor
No,
Speedway.
I thought I'd take a chance. Mark. So, anyway, hey, Mark Berman, we want to thank you very much for joining us here on Tri-City Sports Now, filling us in with what happened in Blacksburg. Big victory for the Virginia Tech Hokies. I'm going to come back with a final thought on Tri-City Sports Now.